yes, the federal government has an impact on, what we do in the state, but the most influential impact on the lives of our kids is the local school board.
Today, I don't know what you were planning to talk about, and I definitely want to hear whatever was on your agenda today, but I also wanted to talk about the governor's Keeping Promises plan on the education side
Sure.
on some of those points. He recommended a 5% continuing education credit for state staff, including $83 million to teachers and administrators. Um, do you want to just speak to the importance of ongoing education for teachers?
I was very thrilled to see the governor propose in his budget building out and continuing to support the career ladder. It's such an important part of what we do. Everything that we do is about the student, and the teacher is the most important element in the classroom. We want to continue to attract and retain the best educators, not only in the state, but in the region. And so making our pay more competitive for our border districts and charters, as well as making a nice living for those that choose education is so important.
In addition to that point, there was $28 million allotted to ensure teachers remain at the state level of funding for health insurance. I'm assuming it adds to that fund that was created in 2022. That
Yes, that's correct. One of the things that we've heard for years from our school districts and charters was that the cost of health insurance and the desire to be a part of the state pool, having more people in that pool made it less of a swing as increases came, and so the last 2 years, 3 years, district employees were able to be a part of that, and so continuing to add money into that fund is very important.
what kind of feedback have you been getting since that fund was created, and how are teachers responding to that? How do they, across the state, how do they like that?
Well, the districts that chose to become a part of the state pool have been very happy to see that. Some were in positions with different contracts that they weren't able to go immediately. And so we're seeing a progression of districts going that way as other contracts come to an end, and the state being more competitive and other places being more competitive. It's really pointed our districts that way. But for those that have gone there, we haven't heard too much, which I'm taking as a good sign. When things don't go well, we hear a lot. When they're going well, we don't hear too much.
And we got to talk about, this $50 million to support education freedom. This issue of private school choice is a pretty hot button issue.
Yeah.
The governor, was very clear about he wanted public schools to be fair, responsible, transparent, and accountable, and he wanted the same thing for, charter schools. Your thoughts on this little bullet point in his plan? Anything you want to say about that?
I agree with his pillars or his points for making anything get across the line legislatively. I've used some different terms. Of course, we've both used the term accountability. I think that is just an expectation of any taxpayer in Idaho. I don't know why the educational system would or should be different. When your dollars go somewhere, you do want that transparency piece to see where and how the money is being spent, and the accountability that where you said it was going to go is indeed where it went. And so I don't see a difference there. I don't see that as a negative in this conversation, that those are just expectations we would have when money goes to build roads or for health and welfare or for law enforcement or for jails or, any part of taxpayer money. I think one of the most important pieces in this conversation is that we move away from saying that this is about choice. Parents can and do choose freely in the state of Idaho, and there are multiple options for how education is delivered. The crux of this conversation, in my view, is on the role of the state to pay for that choice. Is it the state's obligation to supplement? Is there a government subsidy that pays for the choice? And I think that's what should and is going to come out in this conversation in the coming weeks around that. I haven't heard one person say that a parent shouldn't be able to choose or that the government should interfere with that choice. But you're going to hear multiple opinions on where and how taxpayer dollars become of that, or enter into that. And then, what we were just talking about, how important it is, in my opinion, to have some of those guardrails so that we're leveling the playing field. I don't know how we hand a blank check, so to speak, over to someone and say, here you go, we trust you. And then in the public district and charter school realm say, here are a million rules that you have to follow with the same taxpayer dollars.
There is also, as part of the governor's Keeping Promises plan, it allots $136 million toward priority needs in Idaho's public schools. So, what are the major issues and needs for Idaho schools this year?
I know the governor specifically talked about facilities in our rural schools, behavioral health, I believe was something else that came out in the past. There's also been contributions to facilities. Last year we saw, $1 billion earmarked for facilities, and the last of that money is actually going out here in the next month. And so we've seen some great investments in the things that I believe Idahoans expect from a taxpayer funded system. We expect that our students are going to go to a safe facility that is able to, give them an environment where they can get the learning done. And then what are those components to the learning day? And certainly investing in teachers is important. Thinking of the unique geography of our state and local communities. There are different things that, can happen here and there, but we're hearing increasingly about the increased cost to educate our students that receive special ed services and some of those other unique characteristics. Our state budget for public schools doesn't reflect any type of need-based, student-focused distribution. And so I'm going to be proposing a policy that says, here's our public schools budget. We want to live within those means, but we'd sure like the ability to send that out in a way that aligns with the priorities of our local communities and then honors a locally elected school board member to make the decisions for their community with their budget. And so we've identified a portion of the overall budget that we can send out based on characteristics of students, whether it is special education services or gifted and talented students. We want our local districts to be able to have some control over a part of their budget that will go directly to the needs of their students. We've been working with legislators. We hope to have in the next couple of weeks a draft presented to the education committees to discuss this very thing. The premise of it, from my point of view, has been we want to use the same money better. And I think that we're all used to living within our own means, or should be. And I don't think that government should be any different. And so moving away from the constant ask of more money, I'm saying we've got money. There's a significant amount of money that's been appropriated. We need to access it better. We need to send it out in a more effective way. And so I have worked on something for 2 years now that has taken in school business managers, superintendents, school board members. We've done the work to then go and be able to, for me specifically as the elected person, advocate on behalf of our districts. We want a student-centered budget, and we also want a budget that we can use in a better way.
What other issues are you trying to address in the State Department of Education?
We've always been asked and get asked to take a look at others' ideas for different things on education. I've been encouraged to see talk about red tape reduction in our public schools arena. So we're on board with how we cut back on state reports that really are unnecessary or actually become compliance and nothing about outcomes, and this talk about limiting, or DOGE, the government efficiency. boy, is there a lot of room within public education to start cutting back on the numbers of reports that our districts are asked to fill out. And I don't think that takes away from the accountability or the transparency. But when we're talking about a report that just gets filed in a drawer somewhere that nobody ever looks at, why are we doing that? There are better uses of time, for our school officials. We also are continually talking about reading and how we continue to grow our earliest readers. Phonics is at the forefront of that conversation. I reported to the State Board of Education back in November that in the last 2 years, our youngest readers were growing at an 8% rate over the last 2 years, which is incredible. And we want the achievement, but we also want the growth within that achievement. All of our students deserve to be growing regardless of where they start with their reading abilities. So I'll continue to tout that, to emphasize how important literacy is. Civics, where we're talking about what education can do next school year as we look at celebrating America's 250th birthday. And math, the basics, I guess, would be the best way to kind of roll it all up into, what are those things that we focus on?
When you say civics, like better teaching civics in public schools, or?
I think emphasizing civic engagement, attention to just overall civics. It used to be, back when my children were young, and perhaps some schools still do this, but we did things around character development and character education, where schools would emphasize different character traits like responsibility, integrity, honesty, some of those things. And I increasingly, hear from parents and from schools that, there are ways to bring some of those things back into our lessons and into the school experience. And I certainly am not suggesting that they've gone entirely away, but in a very recognizable way. And some of those things are rolled up into how we have these conversations about citizenry and civics and our government classes.
Over the last several years, as you've traveled around the state and interacted with teachers and students and other people, what has been the biggest learning experience for you, the most rewarding experience?
The business of traveling and getting into the schools, into the classrooms, that is the most rewarding part. We talk a lot about operations and budgets and how we're going to, manage all the issues that we see. I never want to lose sight of the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we advocating for teacher pay? Why do we want safe facilities? Why do we talk about helping local school boards make the best decisions with their money? Because it's about the kids. And getting into the classroom for me and seeing our students achieve is just a real point of satisfaction, and just gives me that oomph of, okay, this is why at times when it's frustrating, I say, oh yeah, this is why we're engaged in this. This is why we care about hanging on and doing what's right. We have outstanding young people in our state. We don't share that enough. The projects that I've seen, the youth leaders that have greeted me at the doors when I go to walk in and have conducted tours, the projects that I've seen incredible things in shops across Idaho, our young people that are creating and building. There are future leaders, there are future neighbors, there are future business owners. And I don't ever want to have our state lose sight of that. There are things that we can improve and do better, but we're doing so well. And getting in and listening to teachers that are excited about the classroom, that are engaged in what they're doing and want their students to be the best prepared. Those are the teachers that I'm talking to all of the time. Yes, we have moments of exasperation. Everybody does, regardless of the profession that you're in. But I have never walked out of any type of a visit, tour, explanation, presentation without the biggest smile on my face, thinking, how do I let everybody in Idaho know what I just saw?
Well, Debbie, I appreciate this chance to talk to you.
No, thank you.
Anything else you want to add about anything related to education?
Trying to think, Maggie, is there anything? Let's see. While she's thinking, I'll just say this, and I don't know why it's coming to my mind. I think maybe because of all the chatter around, the federal government and the role that the federal government has or doesn't have. And um, I would say this, yes, the federal government has an impact on what we do in the state, but the most influential impact on the lives of our kids is the local school board. What they do with their money, the priorities that they set, what are their goals? Are they looking at the data? So we are very interested in making sure that our leaders feel supported, that they have access to information to make those informed decisions. What kind of leadership training can we wrap around that? When it's all said and done, the state has an impact, the federal government has a little bit of an impact, but the most important people for the outcomes of anyone's child are the people that they elected to their school board. And so a lot of things can swirl around at the federal level, and we can have a lot of conversations at the state level, but when it comes down to it, those people on that school board are the most important figures in the lives of our kids around the state.